And now we're going to talk about how we can build this website. And it's really cool how this is set up, because if I go to this add button, and you're going to spend a lot of time in the add area and in the settings area. So first add, I can add several things. I can add a panel, an element, or I can work with my pre-configured font. So here on fonts, these, if you've ever worked with Cascade styling sheets, this is kind of that idea where you set your font before you ever get started, and then every time you grab an H1, it's going to have this font style. If you grab an H2 text, this is going to be the font style. If you grab an H3, this will be the font style. So it's kind of an idea of presetting before you ever get started, and then once you get started, it will go faster because all your text is actually configured for the entire website and ready to go. But it is tricky because you have to think about what size you need for your different types of text. So an H1 is really large text, and you can see it's pretty large here, and you can decide which font you want to use, how big the font size is. So here, this is a pretty good size for a font for an H1. And then mobile size, this is where you set the mobile size. So if you want the size to be bigger or smaller, 40 seems a little big for me, so I would go down to about 35. And then the line height, that's the height between the text if you've got two lines of text. So if you make the line height big, the lines go further apart. If you make the line height small, they go closer together and even overlap if you make the line height too small. So an average line height is about 1. I don't put 1.1, I put 1. And you can see right there the line height between those two lines, how they're close together like that. If I increase this, you can see that the line height actually increases. So that's the space in between those two lines. And then if I decrease, and if I seriously go underneath 1, they even end up overlapping. So I can go down, 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 and see how they actually overlap and get squished really bad. So the average line height for any text is about 1. If you want them more spaced out because of the way you're designing your website, then you can increase it. If you want them closer, you can decrease it. Those are all things that you can pre-configure before you ever get started building your actual website. And then let's go to add and panels. And these are the panels that are pre-configured for us. We've got a blank panel. And then here, this is the one we were talking about a little earlier, the first fold. This is that first area they see on the website when they go to the website. And this is the #1 most important area of your website, because this is what's going to set the tone for what the user decides to do, if they decide to stay or if they decide to leave. So if I click first fold, you're going to see some really nice first fold templates, some different colors, different designs, just some really cool stuff. And in this first fold, just like Chip had mentioned, there's going to be an H1 font. And that's important because Google, for SEO, wants you to have an H1 text on there. That helps you to get better rankings, is having that H1 text right on that first fold. So as you go down, that's what they've built for you, is little panels that already have H1 text for you. And that H1 text should be having your keywords in there that you want to rank for. So they are really looking ahead to help you figure out how to set up and get SEO optimized right away. So let's go ahead and pick one. I'll go ahead and pick this one. That looks good. So there's my H1 text, and I've got a little bit of a design right there, a little bit of text right there, and then some buttons. And so that panel is actually there and ready to go. And I can click on the panel, and when I click on the panel, I get this really cool mini toolbar. And on this mini toolbar, I have some things that I can do with the whole panel. I can hide it, meaning stuff it away in the Show Hidden Elements area, and hide it from myself and hide it from other visitors. And if I want to bring it back again, I can bring it back in. So let's see how that works. So I'm going to click Hide. Oh, looks like it's gone. Oh my gosh, don't panic. It is actually in the Show Hidden area. So I'm going to show it. There it is right there. And I want you to notice that when I hover over it, it shows me what it will look like if I put it back. That's a cool feature. And then if I want it back permanently, I just click the eyeball and now it's back permanently. Okay. Also, if I click that panel again, some more of my mini toolbar, I have the ability to move it up and down with these little bitty teeny tiny up and down arrows. So when you get a whole bunch of panels in a row and you think, oh, I want this panel to go up higher or this panel to go lower, you can do that by clicking that up and down arrow. You can also duplicate a panel. So I'm going to click the word duplicate, or sorry, the icon for duplicate. And there's my duplicate panel, and then I can start editing from there. If I want to delete a panel, I just click it and get that little mini toolbar, and then I can click the trash can and then click that's fine for confirm. And I've deleted that other panel and I'm back to just one panel. So you can see that there's a lot I can do just on that little mini toolbar that's right there. But then I can do a right click. So I'm going to go ahead and right click the panel. When I right click the panel, I get some more things that I can do with that panel. And let me go back to add. So I went back to add, and I'm going to right click this panel to show you what happens. So right click, that opens up the style settings so I can work on the style of that banner. So I can change the size of the banner. It's like, well, let's make it longer. So I can make it longer like that, right? Just like that. I can use this button and make it like that. I can set the minimum size. This is going to be important for mobile. So if I want this to have a very specific minimum size, like you're not going to go under this size, I can actually make it a little bit larger or a little bit smaller, and it will show on the mobile. And we'll take a look at that in a few minutes. And then the background, what color background do I want for this panel? So I can make the background any color I want to. I can click on it, get that color picker, pick my color, and then click on the little color bar again, and it will take that color picker away. And I can also add an image to the background. So instead of a color, I can do the background as an image. And if I don't like my image once I put on there, I just click trash and it takes it away and goes back to the color that you chose. I can also choose a border for this. And if I choose the border, I just click up to get to the number that I want to, click where it says none, and choose a type of border. There's a solid right there. And then the little blue I can click, and I can choose a different color. And then click that color bar again to get rid of the color picker. And you can see that now I have this that has a border around it. And then if I decide, you know what, I really don't want a border, I can click none. And what I would do also is set it to 0, just to make absolutely sure you've got a 0 border, no design, and then the color doesn't matter. Also, I can do rounded corners on panels. So if I click rounded, and then I go to, I don't know, 25, 25, 25, 25, you can start to see on these corners, if you look real closely, it's rounded, and there's some gray behind it. Let's make it bigger so you can see it. So we'll go 100, 100, 100, 100. Let's see, I think I did that at 10. There we go. And now you can see it a little bit better in this corner right here. You can see that it's a very rounded corner, and that gray of the background is starting to kind of show up. Another neat thing you can do is I can keep this corner rounded, and then keep these two at 0. So I'll put those at 0. And what that does is it rounds this top, but then the banner that goes underneath it will go flush underneath it. There won't be rounded corners to separate them. So that's a really neat thing that you can do. So it creates a neat effect. Let's look at preview and see what it does. So you can see in that corner, we've got those corners showing really well, and that color in the background. So it's just kind of a different way to create a different kind of effect for your panel. And then we've got shadow. So the shadow allows us to put a shadow on the banner. And I'm going to choose the color of gray because I like gray better as a shadow. And then I can actually change it. So I can change the horizontal, you can change the vertical, and you see the shadow starting to show up right here. Then I can blur it a little bit so it's not quite so harsh. And that will kind of show up, and then you put the next panel underneath it, and it can create quite the effect. So there's that shadow right there. It's pretty cool stuff. To me, these are great to use like at the top header. to put kind of a shadow underneath it, so it kind of separates the header out from the rest of the page and creates kind of a highlight effect for the header. So just a design idea. So you can see now that we've got shadow on this round area, shadow on the bottom. So it just kind of creates a little bit different effect for your banner. And then if I right click it again, I want to always right click and make sure I have that item activated. And we've got the ability to do another style of shadow. So I'm going to click this color picker to get rid of it. At the very bottom, I've got something called inset. If I click inset, what it does is it creates the shadow on the inside of the object instead of the outside, and that creates almost a beveled look. So that's what inset means, is it creates the shadow on the inside and creates almost a beveled look. I do like that design, but definitely not for panels. You're going to hear me say banners a lot because I've said it a lot, but these are panels. But those are some of the things that you can do with the panels for sure. And I'm going to right click it again, and I'm going to go into animation. And because this is a panel, we're not going to see any animation that we can do with the panel. We'll look at animation in just a few minutes. I also have some advanced settings, and in advanced, I can make this panel an anchor point. So if I click it, it becomes an anchor point, and I can name it. That way, when I start creating my menus, I can create that anchor point and have a menu go straight to that panel. So it's really cool because now you can create menus, take them directly to an area inside your website that is an anchor point, and the banner would be the anchor point. So that's really exciting that we have that capability already. If I uncheck that, then we take that anchor point away. And then the other thing is, let's say that I've worked on this for a while and I've gotten it exactly the way I want it, and I'm ready to move on, but I'm thinking, man, this is a really good banner. I might want to use this design on another page or on another website. So I can actually choose Save Element, and I'm going to name it Awesome Banner. And then I'm going to click Save. And what that does is it saves the element so that I can use it again. And if I go in here to my personal area and I go to panels, and then I click that panel, it should show there, but it might be an element. Let's see. Oh, we'll try it again. Panel. There it is. Took a minute. But there's our awesome banner. So if I wanted to use this again, all I'd have to do is click plus, and it will throw that exact banner into my site, and I can use it for another page or another website. So that's really cool that we're able to do that. But obviously I don't want the same banner here, so I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go to the trash can, and then that's fine. So if at any point you want to get rid of your items that you have in your personal area because you're not using them anymore, you can click the trash can, and that will take them out of your personal area. Just remember, if you delete them from your personal area, that means they're deleted. You can't use them again on any other page or any other website. You've taken them away. So if you want that design again, you're going to have to design it and save it into personal again. In the personal area, we have panels as something that you can save, and elements as something you can save. And you can see here, I saved the simple form and I saved the button. So I've got a couple things that I've already saved to my personal area. So let's go back to add, and let's go back to panels. And let's talk about not the first fold, but let's talk about my header, because I don't have a header on this. So I'm going to go and click header. And there's a few designs for headers. I think yesterday there were 3, so now there are 5. And you can pick from any design that you want. I think I like that yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and choose the yellow. And it just takes a single click and it throws it into the website. But I want you to notice that it threw it down, not up. Everything you add when you add panels, it throws it to the bottom of the page. So if I click on this panel and then click my up arrow, it's going to move it up for me. So it's now officially in the top spot as my header. And if you'll notice, I've got my header, and then I've got these rounded corners. So you can see that that's not necessarily a good place to put those. So I can right click that panel, and I can go back to radius, and I can set my corners at 0. So they're sharp corners again, square corners again. There we go. And now we have no corners, so it sits flush up against that header. Now in the header, I have the ability, just like I did in this panel, I can click on it, just a regular click, and I have my mini toolbar. So I can hide it, I can move it up, I can move it down, I can duplicate it, or I can trash it. And then if I right click it, I get to the style settings where I can change the size. So right now I can change it to be a little bit taller, like that. I can change the minimum size for mobile, right? So this is affecting mobile. I can change the background color, which I really like the yellow, so we'll keep it yellow. Or I think this is probably an image. And then I've got some padding here. I don't have a clue what this is. This should be over in this advanced area, so we'll skip over that for now. That one's something new. And then on the border, I can actually change to add a border to this. And then radius, I can add corners to this as well, just like I could the other panel. And then shadow. And this is where I really like to use shadow, is on the headers, because it kind of separates it out. So I'm going to make sure that I right click on it to activate that panel. And then I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add a little bit of a border. And we'll see if we can't get it to see what it looks like on the header. So let me scroll down on here. We'll make the border gray, like this. And then we'll blur it a little bit. And I don't think it's working for shadow for the top yet. So I think that's still something that they may need to work on for the header part. But once that is there, it's usually where it shows up is at the bottom right here, that shadow. And that shadow actually separates out this banner from that banner, and it creates almost a raised look for the header. So it's actually really cool when you get it set up and working right. These right here, let's see, let me click again. So we are in the panel. So again, we've got size, we can change the height. Minimum size, that's for the mobile. Background, that's where we can change the color in the image. And then we've got origin, I don't know. Size, I don't know. Cover, I don't know. Repeat, that's usually for if you have an image. Oh, I think that's what this is there's an image on here, and this is how to control what your image looks like. So on the size of the image for the banner, it's asking, do you want it just automatic size? Do you want it 50% of the panel, 100% of the panel? Do you want it to cover the panel? Or do you want this image to repeat? So if it's a small image, you want it to repeat multiple times on the panel. These are things that I definitely have to play with to see exactly what they do. So we'll play with it more, and then we'll get you some training out on that too. So that's panels, you guys. Now, when we talk about this header panel, again, I'm right clicking and I'm going to animation. Of course, we can't animate a panel. And then advanced, I can create an anchor point on this panel, and then I can actually save it as an element once I get it to where I want to save it to be able to use it again. So that's panels. And we can create many, many panels to create the website. So if I click add and then go back to panel, I can start adding sections to this website. So I'm going to go to blocks, and we'll see if there's cool stuff with blocks. So let's use this one. So I'm just going to single click it, and you can see that it says panel created. So if I scroll down, there's my panel. And then maybe I want another type of panel, so I can do a call to action. And I'll scroll down. There's one with kind of an orangey red button, so I'll click that. So it throws that down to the bottom, and it usually takes a couple seconds for all of the design to come through. And then I close that section, and I can do, let's do pricing. So I'll go to pricings, and we'll pick one like this one here. And there's a pricing panel. And then I'm going to go, last one, a footer. So I'm going to go footer right there, and pick a footer design, which I'll pick this one. It's a simple one. So there's my footer. So I've now grabbed several different panels. They're all relatively similar in color and style. I'm going to have to do a little bit of work with them for sure, but they're now ready for me to start editing the elements in there. So let's now talk a little bit about the elements. So I can go to add an element and add any element that I want to. Now this is a little tricky sometimes because it doesn't look like you've grabbed the elements. If I click box, let's say I wanted to add this box here. If I click it one single time, it doesn't add it. It doesn't work the same as panels. If you click a panel one time, it throws that panel in. But if you're working with elements, you have to click and drag it. And I want you to notice that I'm dragging it over this panel, but it sure doesn't look like it's there. But if I let go, it will be there. So that's a little idiosyncrasy that they're working on, but it drops it in there. So now I have a panel and it's got a box in it. And that box is now attached to that panel. So whatever I do with that panel, that box is going to go with it. And then if I regular click on the box, you can see I've got a mini toolbar. And on that mini toolbar, I have an arrow that allows me to center that item. Then I have the show hide button, so I can send it into the show hide area, and then I can bring it back if I want to. I can duplicate this button, or sorry, box, or I can delete this box. So those are all part of the mini toolbar. The next thing I can do is I can actually, let me get here too, up here. There we go. I can right click the box, and that's going to send me to style settings. Okay, right clicking sends me to style settings. So now I can manage the size of this box. I can make it wider, or I can make it taller, either one. I can do a minimum size, and this is for mobile. How tall is the minimum height you want for this box? And when we look at the mobile in just a few minutes, I'll show you how to check that and take a look and see how to manipulate it. The next one is background. What color do you want to be the background? So I can click this button, and let's make it like a blue color maybe. Oh, that's good. That'll work. And we can do our color picker. We can do transparency. There's a lot of stuff that we can do to manipulate this color. Once you get the color the way you want, you just click that color bar again, and it takes away the color picker. I can also do an image behind the box if I want to instead of a color. Then I can do a border. And on the border, I make the size what I want, and then I pick the style of border, and that allows me to put a border on the box. I can also do radius, so I can do rounded corners. I love rounded corners, so there's my rounded corner box. Now I want you to notice that I clicked outside of the box. So if I do any editing right here, you're not gonna see it on the box. You have to right click and activate it, so you should see that little mini toolbar. If you see that mini toolbar, then that tells you that you can work in this area. Then I can do shadow, and on shadow, you guys know I love shadows. So I'm going to do a little bit of a shadow on here like this. I'm going to blur it. The color of the shadow is blue, so I'm going to change it to kind of a blue-gray. And now you can see that that box kind of pops out of the page because it's got that shadow there. So that's what a shadow does. It kind of creates a little bit of almost a motion effect because it looks like it's popping out of the page. So we can do shadow. Also, in our shadow, at the very bottom, we've got that inset. For some reason, mine's not wanting to show real well. Let me move you guys out of the way here. But on inset, if I click that, it takes the shadow to the inside. And remember that that kind of gives it a bevel look. And if you don't like that look, then you can just take that inset away. So uncheck it, and it will keep the shadow on the outside of the box. Okay. The next thing I want to look at is animation. So I'm going to right click it to activate it. So I should see that mini toolbar. And then I'm going to go to animation. Now this is a cool thing that you can do with your elements on your page. But let me emphasize that with great power comes great wisdom. You have to know the wisdom or great responsibility. You need to make sure that you know when to use these animations and when not. They are like super duper cool, but if you have everything animated on your page, it's really noisy to your visitor. So use them sparingly where you think they fit. But let's take a look at some animations and how they work. So I'm going to go on, let's go on click. So I have to click it to see the animation. And then the animation effect, I can click here and I see a ton of animations. So I'm just going to say, let's rotate in down left. I don't even know what that means, but we will actually take a look at what that means. So I'm going to click it. And then we'll make the speed slow, but we can go slow, slower, fast, faster. So I'm going to do slow. And then infinite means, is it going to keep doing it, or do you have to keep clicking? So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So for that box, we've said that on the click, it's going to rotate in down left. So let's take a look at what that is. I'm going to preview. And there's my box. I'm going to click it. Ah, I see. If I click it in, there it is. So that's how that works. That's an animation effect. And remember that with great power comes great responsibility. You want to make absolutely sure that if you're using an effect, that it fits where you're using it and it's not just gratuitous, meaning you're just doing it because you can do it. So that's animation.
Again.
And then advanced. And advanced is where you can start working with your layers. So if you want to start layering things, so one thing is on top of the other or behind the other, then you can start working with the layers. I think there's still some issues with layers right now, so definitely play with them, but if they are not working correctly, it's okay because the developers know, so they're working on it. And then of course, this element right here, if I right click on it and go back to style and then go to advanced, I can actually save this element in my personal area so that I can use it again in another page or even another website in that account. So that's a lot of stuff that you can do with just the box.